Maybe you are familiar with some of the images of Jesus that portray him as someone who is gentle and tender, kind and compassionate. You know, the statue of Jesus carrying a lamb on his shoulders, or the picture of him tenderly reaching out to someone who is downtrodden or hurting, or maybe a picture of Jesus playing with children. Those images are truly important because they capture something true about Jesus. He is tender and compassionate and kind. He is. And that is not the whole picture. In today's gospel, we see another side of Jesus. Today we hear Jesus talking about taking a stand, setting the earth on fire, fighting for what is right. Today's scriptures are one of the times that portray Jesus with what has been called warrior energy. Now, one of the great wisdoms that has been passed on to us down through the ages in various forms of mythology and reinvigorated the past 20 years ago, especially in retreats and workshops on male spirituality, is that warrior energy is one of the 4 types of human energy that we each have and which need to be balanced in every person and society. Now, way too briefly, and just for context, in addition to the energy of the warrior, the other 3 are that of the magician, who helps us see that life is both and, the lover, whose energy moves us towards connection and savoring, and the king, who helps keep everyone and everything together as disparate as we are. Now, sometimes as people of faith, we can forget the importance of warrior energy. Every person is born with varying amounts of this. It's important, and sometimes it needs to be used. It is what allows us to take a stand for what is right. To remember that there is a truth that needs to be proclaimed, evil that needs to be resisted. As Edmund Burke famously said, all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Now, while it's good that I talk about warrior energy, it also makes me nervous to do so because sometimes people, we don't want to hear, and we just hear what we want to hear. And there is a lot of warrior energy running amok these days. I do not want to embolden anyone who thinks it's okay to scream at others, to bomb a building, storm the Capitol, shoot up a school, vilify people on social media, publicly berate their children, whatever. This powerful energy needs to be balanced by kingly energy, which holds things together and which makes sure this energy is used wisely and for what is noble. Otherwise, warrior energy does way too much damage. And Jesus is clear that we cannot end violence by using violence. We cannot do away with evil by means of evil. That's why for years, after a men's retreat that I had made about this, in addition to having this symbol in my room I made sure that I also had this symbol, the broken sword. Because I know that the power of the warrior energy in me needs to be tempered by the other three. I kept both of those there. Now, having said all that, while we need to be aware of the dark side of warrior energy, we must not throw it out. It is a force for good. When integrated, it yields the clarity of the non-violent teachings of Jesus Christ, of Martin Luther King Jr., of Mahatma Gandhi, and of so many others. Jesus needs reluctant heroes willing to take a stand. Jesus sometimes needs us to be that reluctant hero. In case it is helpful for you to understand warrior energy in yourself, let me give you 2 personal examples of how that has shown up in my life. Now, as background, I am a protector at heart. I am a defender of those who are vulnerable to others. Not many things make me mad, but if you want to make me mad, use your power over someone vulnerable to you. Whether it is your physical power, the power of your wealth or position or popularity, whatever, that is meant to be used for good and for the good of all and not to take advantage of others. So, first example. A while back, one of our school kids was acting out, and our principal, Monica, was rightly working with him to help him understand that that's not okay. I walked in, I guess, at just the right time and joined the conversation. At one point, this kid looks up at me and says, through his tears, "You don't know what it's like to have your dad hold you down and punch you and punch you and punch you." It broke my heart to visualize that in my mind. And I told him, "No, I don't. And I am so, so sorry. You just don't deserve anything like that. It truly hurts my heart that you had to endure that." And I said, "If your dad came here, I would physically stand between you and him. He'd have to get past me to get to you. And he'd probably have to beat me up pretty bad because I'd fight, but I'd throw myself between him and you." And the kid knew that I meant it. And then Monica and I worked on helping get this kid some help so that he himself wouldn't act out in anger. Sometimes God counts on us to use the warrior energy that God has put in our hearts. Of course, it's not necessarily physical force, right? Often, for example, it might be words. We might be the one who needs to speak up to protect others, to say what is right, to someone who speaks the truth with love, who speaks the truth with love. Some of my friends describe this by saying, sometimes you've got to put on your big boy pants or your big girl pants to say what needs to be said. Well, my second example is how I once put on my big boy pants with one of those very friends. Some of his behaviors had way too much anger and judgment in them and caused a lot of hurt. It was a pattern for years, but I knew that now it had become time for me to say something. So I spent several hours writing what I needed to say, arranging it or rearranging it. And I'd said something before, but this needed to be significant because part of my challenge was going to be that I was going to tell him it was crucial that he get with a counselor, essential, I think, a counselor that could help him work on his issues of anger and control. And I asked at what I thought was the right time if he'd be willing to hear something I had to say. So I read it to him. I didn't know how it would turn out. It was scary. But I knew I had to do it. Yes, today's scriptures present Jesus with warrior energy. That energy is in each of us as well. Whatever our age, our gender, our walk in life, we have a power in us, a strength in us that God is counting on us to use for this world.